Biology. So in this video, we're going to be talking about statuses and roles. In the society that you live in, there are certain statuses, certain things that you are that you can and cannot change. And with those statuses come roles, the expected behaviors of those statuses. So we're going to be talking about that. Hope you're excited. I'm excited. Let's get started. So first thing we need to talk about is what a status actually is. The simplest way you can define it is a socially defined. So society tells you what your status is. It's your position in a group or in a society. Now, you don't choose your status. It's given to you most of the time, or you're molded into that most of the time. Now, there are certain kinds of statuses that are ascribed, which means that you can't change them. Some that are achieved, that you do through hard work or through connections achieve. And there's a master status, which basically means the most important status that's currently in your life. So let's talk a little bit more about these. When I talk about an ascribed status, it's something that is out of your control. It's either because you were born with it, it was inherited, or it was given to you. It cannot be changed. So for instance, right now, you have some ascribed statuses. You're a teenager because of your age. You are a male or a female because of your gender. And you are a certain ethnicity because of your genetics. Those are things you cannot change. Now, you can change being a teenager, but you can't do that willingly. You just move out of that age bracket. These are things that you are currently right now. However, there's also achieved statuses that you occupy. And those are things that you gain through effort on your part, the part of individual. And it usually requires some sort of skills or knowledge. A lot of times, that's a job that you're going to have. For instance, I have an achieved status as a teacher. I had to work for that. I had to go to school for that. I had to take testing for that. I had to apply for those jobs to be given that status as a teacher. If you are a husband or a wife, that's an achieved status for a lot of places. Sometimes it's ascribed. If it's an arranged marriage, you have no say in it. But in most places, it's achieved. You choose whether to marry that person or not. You choose to become a husband or a wife. Now, a master status is the most important status that you occupy in your life. This can change. For instance, right now, in my life, one of my master statuses is being a husband and being a teacher. And that's fantastic. But let's say I have kids. Well, then my master status may change due to different circumstances. What if, for yourself, right now, your master status is probably student or teenager. But what happens when you go to college? That's going to probably change to college student. What happens when you get a job? Master statuses change over time. Now, within those statuses, teenager, student, gender, ethnicity, there are roles that you play. It's basically the behavior that is assigned to a status. So here's the best way I could describe it. Ralph Linton says this. He says, you occupy a status, but you play a role. A status is something that you are, but the roles are what you do with that status. So a lot of times in society, there are reciprocating roles. So there are two roles that work together and only exist because of each other. For example, an athlete and a coach, a doctor and a patient, an employer and an employee. Those are roles that reciprocate one another. If you have no patients, then there would be no doctors. You wouldn't need a status as a doctor because there are no statuses as patients. Employers, employees, they need one another. Those roles are necessary in that society. Now, a lot of times you're going to find in your life that roles are going to conflict. All these different statuses that you have, teenager, student, gender, ethnicity, whatever it is, athlete, they're going to conflict sometimes. Now, role conflict happens when the one status that you have and the roles that you do for that status make it difficult to put time into something else. So for instance, let's say you're on the varsity basketball team, you spend a lot of time playing basketball, you're practicing every single day, you got games over the weekends, and being a good athlete at the school conflicts with being a good student because you can't do homework, you're up very late, so you're tired during class. Those two statuses and the roles for those statuses, athlete and student, are conflicting. Also, you have role strain, which is when the roles for a status are very hard to maintain. It's hard to achieve those expected behaviors. A lot of parents have issues with this. You know, you got a job and you got all this stuff going on. You're supposed to be a good parent, and being a parent's hard, and there's a lot of role strain with being a parent or being a husband or a wife for certain jobs. A status as being a doctor or a lawyer or a working on Wall Street. The roles are so hard that you can have role strain a lot of times. Now, here's the thing. When you're playing a role, you don't do it individually. You're always interacting with other people. And when you're interacting with these other people in those roles, it has a purpose in society. You're either stabilizing the structures that we talked about, or you're trying to change society, improve society, keep it stable. And there are different types of interactions that we're going to have in our life. So, exchange, competition, conflict, cooperation, and accommodation are some of those. And we experience these all the time. So let's talk about them really quick. First, there's exchange theory, which basically says we are selfish people. And so the only reason that we're interacting with others is for some sort of reward. We do things to get things back. For instance, if I'm going to offer my friend to drive him to the doctor, I'm hoping that at some point, if I need him to help me build something or help me take something down or do some construction, he may help me. If I have a good friend who's a lawyer and I'm a doctor and he needs me to write him a script, well, then I may use him for legal advice. It's exchange theory. It's the idea of reciprocity, that if I do something for you, you do something for me. And that's a lot of the reasons why people do nice things or are nice in general, is because they're going to expect something back, even if it's just, oh, I like you, you're a good person. That's exchange theory. Sometimes we also have competition. Two people will oppose each other to attain one goal. We have plenty of competitions in sports, GPA competitions in school, Model UN, academic games, things like that. Also conflict. Now conflict's a little bit different than competition. Competition are two people are trying to achieve one goal, only one person can get it, like a sport. Conflict is when one side tries to control someone or harm someone else. Okay? When you're watching a sport, athletes aren't trying to physically hurt the other person on purpose or control the other person on purpose. So examples of conflict would be wars, legal disputes, clashes over ideology, civil suits. If I'm suing you for something, I'm trying to control you by force. I'm trying to get you to do something you wouldn't normally otherwise do. We also have cooperation. Cooperation where two people work together to achieve a goal that'll benefit more than one person. So here's your example. Two donkeys trying to get food. If they work together, they can both eat. A lot of times in our lives, though, we're going to be dealing with this, and it's accommodation. Because people are different, and people have different goals. And we have to figure out how to make two sides that are opposing each other happy. So this is where we have compromise, truces, mediations between groups of people. Where we can say, okay, what do you think? What do you think? Here's the third option. You do this a lot in relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, friendships, marriages. There are two different views. Okay, so how can we compromise about what we both want so that we can have a third option? And these are things that you have in your life, and the roles that you have in society, the roles that you play as a son or a daughter or a husband or a worker or a teenager or a college student, you're going to be dealing with these ideas of conflict, competition, cooperation, accommodation, and exchange theory. Well, that's all there is for today. Hope you learned something you did not know before. Thanks for watching.